Jane is an occupational therapist in Perth, and she's had over 20 years' experience in assisting people to manage chronic pain, fatigue, and mood problems. I think I'll let Jane take over from here and tell you what she's going to do. So here you are, Jane.
Thank you. Well, as you can see, we're going old school. I've been away on 4 days training, and I did have a PowerPoint, but I am actually personally bored stiff with PowerPoints. And what I find often happens is when we have a PowerPoint, everyone's looking at the PowerPoint, and perhaps we don't interact and listen enough. So especially when your senses are challenged with the things like the brain fog and the pain and things like that. Another thing I'd like to say, and here's a challenge for you. If you get uncomfortable and you really need to stand up, I want you to be really brave, and some of you may find this is an easy thing to do. I'm going to talk about pacing today. And so one of the rules of pacing is that we don't overdo particular things. And sitting for 45 minutes for some of you may be uncomfortable, right? On these lovely chairs, not too bad. I've seen worse. So it's a case of can you find a way to challenge yourself to move or stand to make yourself comfortable, and I won't blink an eyelid. Okay, and I'm sure no one else will because we're amongst friends, right? Yeah, okay, good. So I just wanted to start off with, I guess, because I'm really talking about the concept of pacing here. Who's heard of pacing? Okay, now, who actually feels that they pace themselves? Cool. So do you find it's easy to do? No. Great. Look, I want you to be so honest with me because I've done this for, it's actually nearly 25 years now, which I don't like owning up to. And the thing is, my greatest teachers are you guys, okay? So when you say to me, you come, I always know it, people come to my appointments and they sit there and they go, yeah, that's really great, thank you very much. And you can see they're getting more and more uncomfortable. And I don't want people to tell me what I want to hear. I want people to tell me honestly, Jane, that piece of information was useless for me. It didn't work, didn't help. So this is what I want, because you know, you're the experts. You live with this. You live with this, not me. And you all have different variations. And there's so much information as to what fibromyalgia is. Personally, I don't think there's one thing that causes fibromyalgia, but that's a personal thing. I think there's lots of reasons why people develop this thing called fibromyalgia. And you may all have your own wisdom on how that's developed for you. Okay, so this thing of pacing. And pacing, I've got a hand out. I only bought 20. I'm amazed at the turnout here. It's fantastic. Is this because I'm wonderful, or is it because the venue's easier to get to? You just knew that I was... It's a venue, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so basically, does anyone want to give me a definition of what they think pacing is?
It's just being able to take your time and do.
Yeah, that's lovely. Take your time.
Resting when you need to.
Knowing how much you.
Yeah, these are good. Resting. Oh, I'm so glad someone said resting, because, you know, sometimes the idea of pacing is you just, you keep going, you start and you keep going and you just keep pacing yourself up with your exercises, you keep going.
So it's like time management.
Well, yes and no. Take your time resting. Someone else said something really interesting, and we'll come back to that. Oh gosh, I'm getting confused. I'm getting brain fog. Okay, Mark first, and then this lovely lady, and then someone over there. Mark?
For me, it's like energy management.
Energy.
I've only got a certain amount of reserve energy for the day.
Absolutely.
Only so many spoons.
Yeah.
So many spoons of coffee.
This lovely lady, sorry, I can't, Jan. Breaking things down, yeah. Sorry, my writing is terrible. I blame it on being left-handed.
Good excuse. The rest of us are.
Yeah. Want me to write for you?
Oh no, I'm fine, because it helps me think. It won't help you understand because it's so messy, but it helps me to think. Oh, good.
I don't know if it fits in this category, but I put it for myself in this category of putting myself first.
Oh, lovely. Yes, thank you. This is so important. I actually have a handout that I give out is why pacing doesn't work. And one of the biggest reasons it doesn't work is because we don't put ourselves first. Oh, I won't move because I might embarrass somebody else or upset them or, you know.
Yeah, and
Cheryl.
I found that prioritising.
Yes. Prioritising, thank you. Who feels that they do that well? Oh, God. Yes? So it's like you're saying the time management. Or you've got better at it because you've had to, right? Because there's only so much energy. Yeah, Mark? Yeah?
One of the things I find, I do most of these things well for a few days, and then it all goes hot because something comes up with somebody else because you're not putting yourself first all the time. And then it's all sort of gone,
Yes.
and then you're pat your back for 2 days.
Yes. We call that,
I don't know what you call it.
we call that boom and bust. Okay? So, you know, you've got, well, but there's not so much boom and bust because you might have actually, it might be paced first, then boom, then bust. So what happens is you were pacing quite well, then something happened, meant that you had to go, you know, and it can be something completely out of our control, like getting stuck in a traffic jam when you're going to see somebody and suddenly it's 2 hours because there's been an accident on the freeway and it's supposed to only be 20 minutes and you know you can drive for 20 minutes but not 2 hours. So it can be completely out of your control, boom, and then busted, laid up for days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months for people. So this is incredibly difficult stuff here, you know, to manage. And what I've realised is there's lots of different ways of managing. It's not just the physical pacing. It's not just doing it. Yeah.
I think sometimes it's also the acceptance. Like for me, there's a thing between what I can and can't do and what I want to do. And so it's a thing of accepting the fact that I may want to do 3 or 4 things in a day, but I can only do 1 or 2.
Is that hard?
Yes.
Is there, what emotion or feeling state gets associated with thank you, yes. You know that one of the biggest reasons that we don't pace ourselves, and I include moi in that, is this thing. It should be, I should be able to do X and Y, or I want to, or whatever, and I can't. And the emotional state that comes up, and I promise not to mention mindfulness because I'm also a yoga teacher and I teach mindfulness, but I don't teach it in perhaps the way that it gets sold to people. One of the main things about pacing is knowing and managing some of these emotional states, isn't it? And that's really hard because they're just there, they just woof, up they come. And has anyone, let me ask you, does anyone like gardening? Like gardening? Yeah, love gardening. Have you ever looked at the patch of weeds? Gardening. And you've looked at the patch of growing weeds and you've gone, well, ... this, I'm going for it. I don't care if it hurts. I want my garden to be looking, yeah? Okay. Rather than this lovely idea that people like me propose, well, just do a little patch at the time. Are you kidding me? Like, what are you... A little patch at a time, on the time I get round that patch again that's weedy. So this is this thing about our humanity, and this is why something like fibro is so hard, because it affects people on so many different levels, and it affects the mind state, doesn't it? I mean, who feels that the brain fog is a pretty big problem? Yeah. So this is where, who was it that said resting? Who was? And I'm so glad it's a man that said that. Steve?
He's just had a knee replacement. I know what resting's all about.
Oh, good. Well, you're one of those new men. You know those new, not snags, because I don't like that term, but you know. I have just been on 4 days of what's called restorative yoga, where we lay around for 4 days, wrapped up, cocooned, comforted, cared for. And one of the big things about this is the research around rest. Who here sleeps well? Anyone? Okay, all right. So our rest, sleep. Who sleeps well here?
I am now.
Yeah, yeah.
You talk about people without drugs.
Okay, yeah, right. Anything will do. I'll take anything, with drugs, without drugs. But you know, I mean, sleep is a big problem, isn't it? And resting and the rhythms of the body that go out of sync with fibro and chronic fatigue. The rhythm of the sympathetic nervous system, I'm up and ready for action, and the parasympathetic, which is, oh, now I can relax and release. And in 25 years of working with chronic pain, fibromyalgia to me has been one of the biggest increases that I've seen, this complex disorders of pain, memory, mood, fatigue. So, and the reasons are myriad, and I'm not going to even, because I don't know, I'm not able to say, but we seem to be having these more complex health problems, all of us, and I really believe that we are having, our nervous systems are struggling with getting well after we get sick, all of those sorts of things. I'm not going to give you a lecture on that because you know all this stuff. You know, you all know more than I do, right? Because you are the experts. But these are the things, acceptance, frustration, that stop us being able to do the things that work better for us. Guilt. Thank you. Anger. Who gets angry with their body? Yeah. That is. I'm really angry with what I've just done to my hand. It's going to go all over my clothes. I used to have a baby I could blame. She's now 16. When I got food and stuff all over me, I could blame her, but she's too old now. I often say the reason I learned to teach yoga is because I'm one of those people who's always walking into lampposts. I have proprioceptive problems. The only way I can actually control anything is to get a bit more into my body. So
I think that's left-handed, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah, cack-handed. So where was I? I was saying something really important. Oh yes, this anger with our bodies. What happens when we get angry with ourselves? Well, the problem is...
We break our feelings at night.
Sorry? We do what?
Break our feelings at night.
Yes. Look, I once heard a lovely saying, which is, there's no point getting angry with yourself because you can't walk out and slam the door in your own face. And we can't get away from ourselves. And that's one of the big difficulties, is we get angry with this condition. Who asked to have fibromyalgia? I mean, who went, God, powers of the universe, whatever, I really feel like you can give me a dose of fibro. Who asked for it? And the myriad reasons that are so complex here, and yet we are so driven in our society to think that it's the power of me, it's all up to me, it's up to me to fix my fibro, it's up to me that I got the fibro, something somewhere I did wrong, could be your genes, damned hard luck, blame your parents. I mean, so it's so complicated, and these emotions of anger, guilt, frustration are killers to looking after ourselves, and they are the exact opposite to putting, because we have to learn how to manage these guys to be able to actually look after ourselves. I mean, whether we say it's putting ourselves first, whether it's about I respect myself, I care for myself. How can you, when you are angry with the vehicle that is you, how can we have this self-respect? And pacing has to come out of this. And that's why I said to you, if anyone needs to stand here or move in any way. I don't care if you put your head between your knees. I don't mind what you do. But will you do it? You're amongst friends now. Will you do it? And if you don't do it, that's fine. But just be aware of why aren't I doing it? Because this is this awareness of why aren't I pacing? And sometimes it's out of our control. And then it's about how can I make things easier. So when it's out of our control and we can't cope with it, because it's, you know, it's something that's happened that we can't do anything about, what are the things in that I can take control of? And very often the things that we can take control of in those times are really very small and simple things. Coming back to ourselves, coming back to the breath, not letting the mind escalate. I am the world's worst at something called awfulizing. Do you know what awfulizing is? Catastrophizing. Yeah, I don't like that term though, because, I mean, we use it, CBT uses it all the time, but it's somehow, when we say catastrophizing, it's like, well, actually, it is a catastrophe for me being stuck in this traffic for 2 hours and get stuffed. I'm just a human being. Awfulizing is more like, and I use it a lot with the kids that I work with, it's like, oh no, now this is going to happen, and then this, and then tomorrow I'll be like this, and I do it all the time. I am the world's best. You can't throw an awfulizing thing at me, I won't know, because I can be years ahead. You know, the whole family's been blown up by some bomb in, you know, I grew up with in the UK when they were bombing with Belfast, you know, the IRA. So, you know, I can have all these stories running in my head. And I think that's, again, is why we learn these other strategies. What those strategies are for you is going to be very individual. So some people might choose to go to a therapist and work with them on those types of thoughts. Other people might just work it out from reading or from close friends, loved ones who say, you're doing it again, darling. Only sometimes our loved ones are the hardest to deal with, aren't they? But these are very important things when so working with that, like if something does happen that really you know from previous experience is likely to blow you out of the water, how do you manage it? You know, anyone got any examples of how not to do it or how they've done it and it's worked? No?
I think it would be different every day. One day you wake up and you're able to manage to talk. And you just get through that day. And then you go to bed and you pick up the next morning and hopefully it will be a bit easier. Yeah, and then there is mornings when you get up and you feel pretty good.
Go with the flow.
Yes. And we're not very good in our society of going with the flow, are we? We're very goal-oriented. Yeah.
The problem is, I think, socially, is being able to plan ahead and getting the understanding from family and friends, because I think they think you're just a bit potty because you kind of pull out of something because you just can't do it, or you maybe you feel that you've let them down, so there's a sort of amount of guilt, and they see you as, you know, she's going to do something but she doesn't get around to it, sort of thing, and so you're inclined to pull back and say, oh, I'm not sure if I'll be able to go there, and things like that. So there's a whole big social side, including family, friends, and jobs.
Absolutely, and thank you. You've put it so beautifully, because I think that is the biggest problem. We are we are the most social animal there is on the planet, and we catch emotions from one another. And so what happens is that when we're trying to hold our space and hold our own, and someone that we care about, or, you know, and we get this idea, they think I'm potty. What is they think I'm potty going to do to our resolve to stay firm? It's going to blow it out of the water. So this is a learning curve that takes time, and I'm sure everyone's at different places. And the other thing I would say is that if you're going through a difficult time, we're actually more vulnerable to these sorts of things. So the more things are difficult for us, the more likely we're going to actually just go, yes, okay, I'll do it. Because it almost feels too hard, and the nervous system is so ramped and exhausted. I often, when I do a PowerPoint, I have a picture of a cat that's doing this. Wah! That's the nervous system being like plastered to the ceiling, and then another picture of a dog that's like, whoa, which is, and exhausted. It's like the brake and the accelerator on at the same time. The engine's revving, we're going nowhere. So when we're particularly bad like that, that is the real danger time, isn't it, I think. When we're feeling a bit better, when we're feeling a bit stronger, it's actually easier to say, here's some boundaries around what I can and can't do, and if you think I'm potty, I don't really care. But when we're feeling vulnerable, even the slightest glance that looks like, you know, the eyebrow, the sort of like the eye rolling, like you can almost sense it before anyone's even done it. You know, and I think with the sensitivity within the nervous system, the immune system and the endocrine system, that people who have fibromyalgia are incredibly sensitive to the environment. I don't see a personality, I've never seen a personality that has fibromyalgia, but I do think the sensitization of the nervous system makes, it's almost like, you know, just, I can only take so much. Now, how that sensitization came about, whether you were born with it, whether a virus set it off, whether an accident set it off, it's all very uncertain and different for each person.
I'm brave enough, and fibromyalgia has, or I think definitely that I have made boundaries, like I said, and I say to my husband, I can only do 3.5 hours of socialising at parties. I can't do anymore because I know I just can't, and I just have to go.
Yes.
So if you want to catch a taxi, fine, but I'll be leaving it. You know, when I feel I've got to go, I'll go.
And have you worked that out? Have you? That's and does that make it easier to actually socialise?
Yeah, because
yes.
I know I can go when I want to, and
yes.
I don't feel guilty anymore.
No.
I just think I had to stay at the end and all the rest of it, you know. And I know I can't. I just feel so. It'll affect me for days, maybe weeks.
And so this is this, and you've given me a beautiful example, Cheryl, of I don't feel this anymore about that, so I can do this. So in a sense, what I would say is, when we're actually looking at, if I'm not able to pace my activities, if I'm not able to do things for myself, what are the barriers to that for me? And I can't answer that because I'm not inside your lives. And you know, people come and experts talk to you, and I think you sort of gave a little bit of a sort of heads up to me about, as all these experts come, eat this diet, do more exercise, do this, and you know, wow, fibromyalgia will be gone. And they're not living with it, so how would they know? And if do you think you haven't tried it? Who hasn't tried all the... Yeah, okay. So now we have to come back to what works for me. And if something isn't working, what are the barriers? I went through a stage, and I'm not going to blab on about me, but I went through a stage of intense stress where I ended up with something that was probably fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue. Who knows? I don't know. And it went on for a year. And my husband, bless him, I love him to bits, but I had a very high-powered management job. I went and gave it up because I've been struggling for 4 months with fever and fatigue, and he said to me, you've got to go and unresign tomorrow. Go and unresign. I went back and said, sorry, I'm unresigned. And then, of course, 3 weeks later, I resigned again. But, you know, this is someone who loves me. We're still together, believe it or not. I mean, our loved ones can be so cruel to us. So it's like, how do we keep coming back to what will work for us? And what is so lovely about this group is that you gain support from one another. On my little sheet that I do dare to give out to people that only has a few little things on it, the last one is get support. And so we might only have 1 or 2 people. We don't need that many, but if we can have someone who understands, oh, how's the brain fog today? Oh, I've lost my keys 5,000 times. It's like, and you know, the glasses on top of the head, you know, and the stress that goes with that, and the sense of foolishness, and someone else understands that. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that better than all the me's standing up going, hey, I've got the answer for you. You just drink Kumbulko tea and, you know, meditate every day and everything will be fine. So Oh, thank you.
I just thought you were going to tread on that.
Do you know, at the workshop, this woman, Judith Lassiter, who is like the best person in the world and believes in rest, and she said, you know, your homework is over the next months is when anyone offers you help, take it. So thank you for picking that up. Because I would have crushed it, or I would have rolled my ankle on it, which I did on a Barocca tube one day in the middle of the night and ended up with a very badly sprained ankle for 3 months. Don't leave Barocca tubes on the ground. Not good in the dark. So, you know, it's our humanity, you know, and what people with fibro get to learn is about their humanity. Because, you know, when we feel well, it's really easy to go out there in the world and you know, be strong and put on the power dressing and go to work. And who here still works, by the way? Yeah? Wow, amazing. But it's hard, isn't it, to work when you feel like this? Because it's not, you don't have a sign on your head that says like, hello, there's a tortoise on my head here. It's wearing its earrings, but hey, not good today. The tortoise is not well.
Say, gee, you're looking really well.
I've nearly been socked in the face by a few of my clients for that. I never say it anymore. I'll say, yeah, I'll just, nice makeup. Guys, it's worth thinking about. No, I'm joking. So it's about learning, well, what we have to come back to what works for me. How can I do this? And if you are in a situation where there is a lot of this going on, a lot of going into overdrive, and then having to pull back and sometimes rest for weeks and weeks and weeks, then it's really important to give yourself a bit of space when the brain fog's not too bad, and try and work out, maybe sometimes with a friend, it's like, what do I do that I keep falling in this cycle of, and it's usually we feel a little bit better, so we go and do more.
It's hard though, because you're so used to doing what you do. It's really hard to find, it's like finding a new you, I find.
It's absolutely.
Last year, and trying to, like, when they're having to give up work and stuff, and it's like your whole world changes,
yeah.
And it's really hard to find where you belong.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know.
So you keep
yeah.
trying, and it's hard.
It's giving up a whole identity. Yeah. So there's a lot of loss and grief there. And what do? We keep trying to go back to the old identity, and it doesn't work for us. Is that correct?
Yeah,
we can't do it. So how do we find this new identity? And it can take months, years.
Your kids grow up.
Yeah,
and making changes, and then you have to find out who you are.
Yeah.
Well, you're still mum, but you're not needed.
Yeah, so it's the same sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I have someone very close to me who says, don't focus on the fibro all the time, don't make it your life, don't, don't.
How do you feel inside when you get that message? Really think. Yes. Really.
Yeah.
That's really important, because that is the message that people are often given, aren't they? It's like, don't focus on the fibro. Well, do you think I would if I had a choice? Like, I love my fibro. We're great friends. You know, and this is the very point that I'm making, is we start to come back to ourselves and we say, here is this friend that every time I see them, I end up with worse symptoms or flared up or upset, because emotions, and they found this out at the beginning of the century, is every feeling we have and every thought we have has a physiological effect in our body. Wow. I mean, as if we didn't know that. Like, you know, when you're afraid and you go, or, you know, frustrated, and it's like this big, because the gut has as many receptors to emotion, and more receptors to emotion than it's like called the second brain. And it has receptors, and most of you will probably know that because, you know, you do your research, yes. And yet when we go into our medical world, nobody's saying, how's your gut today? You know, like what's going on there? It's like, oh yeah, it's like we deny all of this that we know what's going on. And so those emotions, and that is not to say, oh, fibro is an emotional disorder. That is not what I am saying. But those emotions will affect how we cope, how we manage, when we feel safe, when we feel like we're cared for, we can rest, our nervous system can relax, and that is fundamental, I think, to these sorts of conditions. Is the nervous system, the immune system, the endocrine system are on like this. So we need, I mean, all human beings need this, but when it's fibro, there's even more need for being around integrity, care, gentleness, kindness. You know, we need those things. And very often what we get is misplaced kindness. I'm sure she's trying to help. But then it's about, do I withdraw a little bit from that? Do I make a choice to not be around that as much? Because this person, every time I see them, I get a bit of a boost of energy. I feel a little better in myself. It may only be a little, but it's enough to make it worthwhile. Or just to chat on the phone and I feel better. Chat on the phone, I feel worse. Pay attention to those feelings. They are so important. You know, and we can't afford that little bit of energy to be drained. So here I am giving you a talk on pacing, but really it's a talk on what we're feeling, so that we can then behaviourally do things differently. Because everything is driven, all our behaviours are driven by our emotions. Have you heard of the studies that with young Hoon drivers, they did some work with taking them into the emergency department, getting them to see young people who'd had accidents, talking to the families, talking to disabled young people who'd, you know, had been crippled in accidents. And that had more effect than anything on them what there's a word for it anyway? Repeat performance. It's a nice word, but I can't say it. And this is this thing, our emotions will drive our behaviours, so that's why pacing doesn't work, because if I'm in a place where I don't feel safe, guess what? I really, really, really want to get up and walk out of this room, but that woman Jane makes me feel really unsafe and I'm not going to move in front of her, no way, because she might be criticising me, you know. I mean, it's true, isn't it? Whereas if we're with people that who care about us, we can get up on the sofa, we can pummel things around us, we can lie on the floor, we can hang from the ceiling. You know, well, if it helped, you would. But we can be who we are. I'm sure that is why this is such a wonderfully well-attended group of people, because you can, and you know, I was listening to you chatting beforehand and the room was vibrant and there was an energy here, and I'm sure a lot of you are suffering pain, a lot of you are fatigued, you wouldn't be here, but it's still, you can still feel good amongst friends, right? Yeah. So, yes, go on.
I was just going to give an example of what happened to me last Monday. I was feeling particularly bad. I had probably a couple of weeks of a lot of pain. And on that day I had my daughter-in-law ring and say that she was very unwell and could I come and babysit her toddler. And my mother rang as well, and she's 88, and she said, I'm having a really bad day, I need you. And I was really torn, and I had the thoughts, and I said, I'll let you know. And so I rang one of the girls from the support group, and I had a long talk with her, and she said, Judy, remember to put yourself first.
Yeah.
And I did. So I rang them both and said to my daughter-in-law, I'll come Wednesday if that's okay, but I can't come today. And did the same with my mother. Both were unhappy with my decision, of course, but I looked after myself. I went Wednesday and was able to help her, going to see my mum after this. And I feel like the group was, in that way, I just felt as though the group really helps at times if you get to know each other individually.
Oh, I think that is such a wonderful story.
Really, you know, the fact that she put me back where I needed to be.
And that is beautiful, thank you. And the point that is so important about that is we tend to think we have to do this on our own. Like, okay, put myself first, right, I'll give myself a good talking to. When we are soothed by another human's kindness, another human's understanding of us, it is much easier to be firm, isn't it? I mean, would you have done that without that talk? Do you think? Would you have not so easily?
I would have felt really guilty and
Yeah.
thought, whose need is greatest here?
Yeah.
My daughter or my mother.
Oh, where's me? And of course, you cannot give to them if you are depleted so badly. So today, when you see your mother-in-law, sorry, you will be able to give to her with more of you than you would have then. You would have gone and you'd have probably been no good to anyone, let alone you or them. So these are the things that we have to learn is I actually can't be any good to anyone in this state. And I've got to be good to myself. But it may be that someone has to give you a pep talk to be able to have the confidence to do that. And that's fine.
Can we just ask who in this group does actually get support from other members of the group? Yeah. Well, I mean, it's different. I mean, just being here with each other. I mean, humans share energy. You know, we share energy. We walk into a room, and we always, when I worked with mental health issues, we're always told, you know, you've got to be really careful because when you're with people who are very depressed or very anxious, you do pick that up. And we share energy. So this sharing of energy in here, we don't always have to say things to one another. But what is nice is if I just got up here and talked to you about pacing, the rules of pacing are this. The second rule is this, and the third rule is this. You go, God, my bum hurts, my head hurts, wish she'd stop talking. You're probably still thinking that, but you know, it's sharing. I saw that nudge. I saw you nudge him. He said to you, you know, it's like, it's starting to be comfortable with all of this stuff, frustration, guilt, anger. We all have it. And it's harder when you're chronically unwell. So that means we need to be doing more. I'd like to say a little bit more about this rest thing. Who gives themselves really good rest time? Who feels they give themselves enough good rest time that they, yeah. Who feels that they don't? Who feels that they push, that they try and push on? Okay. So this is incredibly important for the healing of the nervous system. And we have been, you know, over the years I have got more and more clear that the biggest rule of pacing that I have to push to people is rest more. And by that I mean active rest. I don't mean sit in front of, like, Breaking Bad is not good news for rest. No, that's not. If you want to hype up your nervous system and be in a state of complete, watch Breaking Bad. And if you want to be really, really stressed, do what my husband does and watch 3 episodes at once. And he wonders why he's fired up. What's Breaking Bad?
You don't want to know. Ask somebody else who knew. Don't ask me, because it makes me just feel. So it's a series. Yeah. Rest more, rest more, rest more, rest more, rest more. And active rest is finding ways to get who has a particular comfortable rest position? Like, yeah, what is this lovely lady in grey? What's your rest?
My couch. My couch is my spot. I've got the one little spot that has an indent now because I'm sitting in it. So
gorgeous. Your nest.
And everyone knows you walk in the door, you turn the corner, and there I am.
Yeah. Nesting. Anyone else have a favourite rest position that they can get?
I don't use it.
Okay. Leonie?
A nice egg chair that it's got cushions on, it's beautiful.
Leonie?
Really
Your homework is to...
My swinging chair, the trouble is you have to put enough effort into it.
Oh, no. Yes. Oh.
Actually getting there and actually going, yes, this is where...
Okay. So your homework is to work out what's stopping you getting into that chair. There's not enough time. Yeah. Rest more. Who feels there's not enough time to do that? Okay. Yeah. And this is a very important one, our concept of time. is there's never enough time, because that is driving up the nervous system big time. And the one thing people with fibromyalgia can't afford is their nervous system being driven into that too much. So it's really about us starting to look at time a bit differently and like carving out time. Recently I was working 5 days a week and I was no good to anybody. I now work 2 days a week. And I'm taking a 6-month sabbatical next year so that I can recharge, so that I can be more used to people. And that has been a very big journey of I'm failing, but it's about this thing of if we don't have time, the parasympathetic nervous system will not kick in while we're in that time driven. And this is what is out of sync. And also the cortisol and the adrenaline, which eats into our muscles, it eats into our bones, it's like acid. It keeps driving up. Now, I'm not here to lecture you. All I think the thing is to start noticing when you feel that time-driven thing. And Judith Lassiter, who trained us, says whenever she feels like she's speeding up, she now consciously slows down and she gets more done. So it's almost like just hold back. When you're starting to go, it's actually to just slow down. And you picked that up so beautifully for me. You came up slowly and you picked it up, and that helped me to slow down. Whereas there's that whiz where your head starts to go really like is no. So it's scattered. So there's a thing that when you've walked around the kitchen 3 times and done absolutely nothing except put the peas that should have been in the freezer into the medicine cupboard, that is your cue to go, okay, we need this, we need a pause. And a pause can be, we can physically come back into the body. Everyone says, oh, this is so uppy-goopy, but really, honestly, the best thing we can do at those times is to ground into the body, ground into the feet, put our hand on our belly, breathe. 3 breaths. It's nothing clever, it's just we don't do it. Because somehow we've been told that our own inner wisdom isn't enough, because any minute now there's going to be a super drug that comes out that's going to cure fibro, so we all wait for that. I have migraines, I'm still waiting for the super drug that's going to cure my migraines. I mean, we're all the same, because we're always promised that this might happen. And I'm not against medications at all, by the way. I think they're fantastic as long as they work. That's the bottom line. They help, great. But this coming back and using our own inner wisdom is it's not considered to be of any real importance, and yet everything that you've come up with today has come from this wisdom. I mean, it's Judy, sorry Judy, and I do know you. Judy, it wasn't just about you talking to a friend. It was that you had the wisdom to know that you had to talk to a friend. How did you know that? And that is what we need to pay attention to. How do I know? Don't judge yourself. If you've whizzed around that chair sitting there looking at you longingly and you don't sit in it, don't judge yourself. Oh, that OT woman said I should sit in the chair. Just, why didn't I do that today? Why? What was it? Oh, not enough time. Time driven, I've got more and more to do. What can I learn from these things? It might take us months to learn that. Like you said, you're reinventing yourself. It takes a long time to do that. It's not like I can just put on a new skin and I'm okay. Here's my fibromyalgia skin and I'm okay with it. Yeah, right.
The thing is, the time's hard because it takes so much longer to do anything. Just to get out of bed in the morning, it's like you're aching, and it just takes so much longer to do everything that you really get nothing done.
No.
So then you don't rest, but you haven't really done anything. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I know exactly what you mean, because people have told me about it. I have a thing in here, my rules of pacing, because I'm one of these mad people that gets the word pacing and then sits there going, what can that stand for? P, plan ahead, blah, blah, blah. Nobody's interested in my little acronym or whatever it is, but I still have to do it. It's like a OCD thing. Anyway, the C of pacing is create alternatives, cut corners. Who here gets their shopping delivered?
Who can what?
Who here gets their shopping delivered by Coles? Okay. Who here has a cleaner? And, yeah, okay. Now look, some people will say, well, I can't afford that. But I want you to think about, who here has seen quite a few health professionals to sort them out? And spend, yeah, okay. How many of those health professionals have actually helped? Come on, be honest.
Not all of them.
Not some. Half? Half? Okay, half. Okay, so the other half, did they cost you quite a lot of money? Do you know what I say to people? They're coming and seeing me and they're overdoing things, and I'm talking too fast, so I'm going to slow down. I say, I would like you to stop coming and seeing me, you're coming fortnightly, and pay for a cleaner. Because it's about the same cost. 3 hours or 4 hours of cleaning and me, about the same cost. Pay for a cleaner. Now that's someone who needs to actually have someone to clean the house. If it was something else. But you know, it costs $5 or $7 to have Coles deliver our food. To not be there, to then have the energy, because they can bring it into your house and you can put it away, pace yourself. These are practical solutions that we can do. Cut corners. Don't look at the little bit of mould at the bottom of the shower. Beg and plead a friendly rally to do something about it. It's only if you actually, you know, there's some things that get too much for us, but, you know, get the dog washed by someone, whatever it is.
It's hard to ask for help.
It is.
Well, the G of pacing. Ta-da! Get support. Get support. It is really hard to ask for help.
Saying that, with the cleaning, I've just been qualified, if that's the word, for home cleaning help through
Yes.
hack.
Yes. Yes.
So when I was working,
Yes. Get a hack.
It was hard for me to do
Yes.
that.
But well done. That's fantastic. That is really one of the best ways you can be starting to.
Getting the dogs washed.
Yes. and then there might be time to sit in that little eggy thing with the little. Yeah. You know, it's like, hello, yes.
I just wanted to share what I did this year for my birthday. Well, we have so many things and we don't really need much more, so I asked for my daughters if they would give me the gift of a cleaner for a day. Not just for the regular cleaning, because if you don't do your vacuum cleaning and your...
Like the spring clean.
Spring clean and polish and then the lounge suite and she really scrub the kitchen doors and scrub all the house doors.
Wow, isn't that's lovely. Now that is so creative. That's the C of pacing. Creativity. Create alternatives. We can only do that when we have accepted, I need this, this is what I need. And that's the hardest bit. And that's wonderful and well done. And it's exactly right. It's, do I need another gazingus dibbly-doubly doodah thing that lights up and whizzes round? And no, I need someone to clean the tops of the pictures. And that's great. Thank you.
But even coming today, that was a huge step for me because I'm a very private person.
Yes.
And I don't, now and again I'll have a quick chat on Facebook, but to actually
come out
and say, well, I need this for me.
Yes.
I'm starting a new journey in my life where I am going to take time for me. But, you know,
and
a lot of this is probably hard to do things
I'm
like
sure it is. And Joanne, you are such a private person and you have shared, and that takes courage. And so all of these things, thank you. It takes courage to do these things. And so it's like, can we have the courage to look at ourselves and say, what isn't working for me? And there's a very simple way of doing that that is really, apart from this rest more, and I could talk about that for a whole session because there's so much research on it, but I won't bore you, it's a very simple way that I learned from a lovely man called Professor Mark Williams, who is a teacher of mindfulness, but he talks about what are my up activities, and I don't mean up as in up and about and being squeaky clean and being so, oh, I'm out there. But what uplifts me? What makes me feel that I have more energy or more to give, or just a sense of well-being? What are my up activities? And what are the down activities? And yes, you'll have a longer list. Who's snickering there? What are... How long is this list going to be? You know, this is really important though. What are the things that help me to feel better, and what are the things that consistently make me feel worse? And it may not be that we can do something about all of them. Like, we can't fix every problem, certainly not immediately. This is your lovely comment, Leonie, about this is a journey. This is a journey I'm on, and it can be a journey of a lifetime. But beginning to really honour that I'm recognising these things. I'm recognising them. Because if we don't know, we can't do anything about it. If you don't know what's the problem, you certainly can't fix it. Can you? Is that fair enough to say? And it may be something we can't fix. And it's then about knowing which of these can I fix. Always start with the easiest. Never start with the hardest. Okay, so I can ask hubby to fix that light bulb that's really annoying me, and I know he won't scream about that one. No, we'll start that one. Always start, the whole thing around behavioural therapy is start with what's easy and build up from there. And easy means so easy, like something that I know I can achieve. And this was what we used to do at the pain clinic I worked in. You know, what can you achieve? You've got walking tolerance. I've worked with a woman for several years who started off on 10 seconds of sitting. She's now got about 10 minutes, and she's just wrapped. And she moves around. I mean, it's revolutionised her life to be able to do that. So, you know, they're important things. And I've run out of time. So, in fact, I've really run out of time. I'm so sorry. But that's an important one to finish on. Up and down activities. What works, what doesn't. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for your feedback. I learned so much from you guys, really. Thank you. Thank you.